Hello and welcome to the Road to the Dance podcast. Really start to the big things here. Talking college basketball. Three young guys trying to get our way into the sports media industry. So today I'm just gonna jump right into it. Really, for this podcast, we're kind of just doing segments of like games and stuff, as well as breakdowns and just really all college basketball. Also going to go to some games this year and like have some segments at the games. That's going to be fun. We're all going to have individual segments at games and stuff. But to get right into it, tell us a little about each other. I'm Chuck Kelly. Favorite team's Illinois. Favorite player of all time is Terrence Shannon Jr. So we'll go to.
My name's Alex Zach. Favorite team all time's got to be Wisconsin. Favorite player to come out of there is Johnny Davis.
I'm Chubby Lacombe. Favorite team is University of Kentucky Wildcats. My favorite college basketball player all time is Rob Dillingham, but right now it's got to be Otega Oweh.
Yeah, so topics for today. We're going to go over the Bruce Pearl retirement. We're going to talk a little bit about the super team that Bethune-Cookman's building. And then we're going to go through our Big Ten preview. Really excited to bring you guys this content, so we're going to jump right into it. With the Bruce Pearl retirement yesterday, around like 4 o'clock, he drops a 24-minute video explaining his retirement and brings up that his son, Steve Pearl, will take over as head coach at Auburn. So we'll go into your guys' thoughts on it.
How much of a shocker do you think this is? It's just 6 weeks before the start of the season.
No, it's kind of crazy to think how that will affect his current players, like how Pettiford decided to come back for Bruce Pearl, and now how will that affect that team's overall?
I personally don't think the system will change much, just because his son has been in like the system for years, 10 years. Started off as strength and conditioning assistant coach, been there a while.
Yeah, no, I think that it was not a great move by Bruce Pearl to bring in his son Steve so late, or like in the season, or retire so late in the season. Really, just because, we know that Auburn was not going to bring in Steve Pearl if Bruce Pearl were to have retired, after the season ended. They would have definitely found a more classy, higher up coach. And I think Bruce only retired at this time so that he could set his son up instead of, setting his players up for the future. I just think that's an awful move by Bruce.
Yeah, I could agree there. The players have 30 days to transfer, but I don't see them transferring.
Especially with fall practice just starting today.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any
sense
to me.
Just the other day.
Yeah, and I also heard a couple reports of him going for the Alabama Senate in 2026. What do you think that was part of his plan?
In the video, it actually says he's not
down.
running for Alabama Senate in 2026. He's going to be going on to the Auburn University Senate, which, again, I just think this is a really confusing move to retire this early because, again, even if he was running for that 2026 Senate seat, that's 2026. He's got a full season ahead of him where he can, be coaching and still be planning for his campaign on the side, but you don't really need to start campaigning until, 2026 itself.
I feel like it's a big shocker that they brought in Stephen Pearl, no head coaching experience, but I guess 6 weeks before the season, got to keep someone that's been around the system and that's been around the team already.
Yeah, and you can rely on the fact that he definitely has a relationship with their guys. I've heard a couple rumors that Tahad Pettiford, he's definitely had a relationship with him at his time at Auburn, and I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out for Auburn this season.
Do we think this team will struggle?
I'm thinking early season struggles, but then once Pearl's going to be, his son's going to be in the mix more as the coach, get his feel for the team and figuring out through this fall practice, I think it will end up working out in the later run. As long as they get to that groove by the time March Madness comes around, I think they'll be good.
I really think as long as they get in their groove before conference play starts, like first few weeks of the season, out of conference teams, bringing them in to play.
Yeah, how is Auburn's out of conference or non-con schedule looking this year? I don't know if they have it up yet. I'm gonna pull that up right now, and we're gonna take a look at that strength because that's gonna be tough, especially if they have a rough schedule to start. They're not gonna find a groove, and then you jump right into SEC play, which we know is a very, very, very tough system to jump right into. especially in recent years. SEC ball has been up on the rise over and over and over again. So
yeah.
Okay. All right, so yeah, their non-con schedule, they jump into it with a couple of mid-majors. You got Bethune-Cookman, Merrimack, Wofford. Then on November 16th, you got Houston at home. That could be a tough game. I personally would probably have them taking an L in that one. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, especially them going to the Natty this last year, but sadly losing to Florida. It's a hard team to come across for your first big game in the season, especially as a coach coming in, not even really getting to know the system yet. But I mean, obviously he's been there for a little bit as the strength and conditioning coach, but just excited to see how he'll play out there as his first year comes along. But still think struggles are going to happen at one point.
Yeah, and then after that, we got another mid-major at Jackson State, and then they have a little at-home Big Ten stretch here where they play Oregon and Michigan on the 24th and 25th. I think this is actually going to be. It's looking like this is actually like a in-season tournament type of
like
event.
A CBS Sports type. I'm really thinking that Oregon game is going to be a trap game for them.
Yeah, I could see it.
I really like Oregon in that one.
Yeah. Then they got NC State. Then they take on Arizona at Arizona, which I think, I don't know, Arizona, little shaky coming into this year. I think they could definitely pull that game off. And by that time, you got to be clicking. If you're not clicking with Steve Pearl, it's gonna be you're gonna be in for a very, very long season this season.
And honestly, I feel like with recruiting over the next few years, I feel like it's gonna slow down a lot just because you get that first-time head coach in the mix.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the last name, but does he really have the experience to be getting all these new recruits, top prospects?
Yeah, exactly. And with that, obviously, yeah, like you said, the last name, but that's only going to bring you so far. You need to have that huge season, Final Four, Sweet 16. At the minimum, Sweet 16. Otherwise, they're going to see, okay, well, this guy's coming in. He's not producing like Bruce Pearl was producing. Why build a program with these guys when I could go and commit to another SEC school like Florida or Bama, like two huge schools, and you're competing with them season long.
I think if they have a good season this year and he proves that he can be that guy at Auburn, I feel like then, okay, let's talk about what they're starting here and what their future is going to look like. I feel like they'd have a bright future.
Yeah, I agree. After Arizona, they have another mid-major game at home versus Chattanooga. Easy win there. Then they go on the road to Purdue Saturday, December 20th. I think Purdue wipes the floor with them by a mile.
I don't think that game will be close.
Yeah, I do think Purdue's going to, obviously, having the background of having Zach Edey, one of the most dominant bigs in the recent history of Big Ten play. I think them just focusing on the Purdue versus Auburn matchup is kind of just going to be a landslide for Purdue, but always a good game when you hear those two names come up.
Yeah, and then they finish off non-conference with game at home versus Queens. Then obviously they hop into SEC play, but that's kind of what their non-conference schedule's looking like. And I'm seeing a lot of wins. I think they have a perfect balance of skilled opponents versus those guys, those mid-major teams, those little games, those boost games. Bring fans in, bring in some money, bring in some hype around the team. Oh, they're blowing out guys like Wofford or Merrimack by 30, 40 points, and that gains some hype around the team. Get your guys' confidence up after just losing their star head coach. All right, so with that, now we're gonna head into our next topic, which is the Bethune-Cookman super team. Bethune-Cookman is in the SWAC. SWAC is pretty much dead bottom on the college basketball pedestal. There's never really great teams coming out of the SWAC in March. Consistent 16 seeds getting blown out every year. But here comes Bethune-Cookman, who finished with a 13-5 record last year in conference play, finishing third. They didn't make the tournament, but then they bring in Arterio Morris, former 5-star. He had some legal troubles, but they bring him in from Texas. And, how is he going to plan out? They also got some other players. I'll let you guys get into that one.
Yeah, I mean, Arterio Morris, former 5-star out of Dallas, Texas, transferring in. I feel like he'll be a big part of that roster. And I feel just like they're going to have a really good backcourt this season, especially with Dr. Bradley as well.
Yeah, and I'm averaging 19 and a half a game.
19 and a half.
A little bit of an odd transfer coming from, I believe, is Arkansas Pine Bluff. Swag to swag. Don't really see the reason in there. I feel like for me personally, I'd be going up schools. Definitely. But, he did have a little bit of legal trouble there too, which, possible little felon super team here.
I feel like Bradley is really going to help their size and strength at the guard position. I mean, he's a very good scorer, of course, but he also brings the rebounding and just the size to the guard position that they've needed.
And Bethlehem Cookman seems to be a senior-led team over here. A lot of seniors on this team, so
a lot of veterans.
Obviously showing that they could lead this team to be maybe a super team coming into this next college basketball season.
Yeah, especially they also brought in Zion Harmon from Seton Hall. He wasn't huge at Seton Hall, but you're bringing in a Power 5 player. They're going to make an impact, especially in the SWAC. I mean, at that point, you're practically D2. So, you take Seton Hall down to Bethune Cookman. It might be a little bit of a, personal change, but I think once he finds his footing, he's really going to help out that program. As well as they bring in Jacoby Hetty from Central Michigan, a 15-point-per-game scorer. He's going to be another huge impact. And, I mean, the transfers that they're bringing in here are huge.
Yeah. I mean, that's another big guard to help their backcourt. And I just feel like with those two huge guards, both over 6'5", that they're just going to dominate and just be on the perimeter and in the paint as well.
Yeah, honestly, I could see Bethune Cookman, if they find their footing quick, get off to a great start, and honestly, I could see this team wiping the floor in conference play, going, full 18-0. I could see them getting as high as a 13 seed. If they clear their conference tournament, which honestly shouldn't be that difficult, especially when you're bringing in 5 stars, 4 stars, former 3 stars. These big guys from big name schools averaging big points. I could easily see them being a 13 seed and possibly pulling off that upset first round.
The only thing I'm wondering about Jacoby Hetty is, will the efficiency be there? Of course, shooting 22% from 3 last season and 40% from the field. I don't know if the efficiency will be there.
That's true. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it would be a great story for a team like this. Got a bunch of guys struggling with legal troubles and, stuff like that. I would really love to see this team just, go into March Madness unheard of. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if you're not a huge college basketball person, you're in Bethune Cookman, you're like, where's that? For all those listeners out there that have no clue, it's around Miami area in Florida. It is an HBCU, but, small school. Nobody's heard of them before. They could put themselves on the map and, really see that dynasty start to build. We saw it with FGCU, Dunk City 2013. They put themselves on the map. Obviously, in recent years, we haven't seen that success, but even 2018, the Cinderella run with Loyola Chicago. I mean, you can name a billion Cinderella runs where it puts that recruiting team on the map.
I'm really seeing a jump in San Diego State as well.
Yeah.
Making it that far. They've been consistently in the tournament every year after that.
Yeah. National championship appearance as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much else on the Bethune Cookman super team, but like I said, 13 seed, we could see that soon. Next up, jump right into the Big Ten preview here.
I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, got 2 fans of Big Ten teams here. Got a little SEC fan over here, so he's going to be a little unbiased on this one, whereas we're probably going to have a little bit of biased teams that have, cooked our favorite teams in the past. Big Ten play gets very, very ferocious, and, there's so many trap games week in, week out. You got to come into every game like it's the national championship. So I'll start it off. We're going to go bottom to top. My number 18 coming in, I got Penn State. They're coming off of a second to last place finish in Big Ten play. They only bring in one impactful transfer in Josh Reed from Cincinnati. Overall, I think Penn State is just in shambles as a program overall. I just really cannot see this team going far at all. Maybe a 17 in the conference at best. I think that's their floor. ceiling. And then I think floor is 18, so not much wiggle room there. It's just not a good program.
Yeah, my 18 also have Penn State. I just think from prior history, especially last season, just finishing second in the Big Ten here. Big Ten's one of the biggest basketball conferences behind like the SEC and all that. So definitely a place where you don't want to be struggling because these teams ahead of them that we're going to be talking about later are definitely have a slight edge over this Penn State team, especially like you said, bringing in Josh Reed from Cincinnati. Like maybe like biggest factor that they bring in, but they're also losing Yannick Cohn and Hauser to the draft this year. I felt like last year he was a decent contributor to that Penn State offense and defense on the floor.
Number 18 for me, as well as these two guys, I have Penn State. 6-14 in the Big Ten last season. She isn't going to cut it. They all started losing two-time Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, Ace Baldwin Jr. I mean, they're bringing in 2 4-star recruits, but is that really going to help them year one?
Exactly. Yeah, honestly, with Penn State, especially in power conference play, when you aren't winning, you're digging yourself a deeper and deeper and deeper hole. And we've seen that with Penn State in these past couple of years. They had Jalen Pickett a couple of years ago. I remember him torching Illinois in one of those games. But since then, I mean, they have been a pretty consistently awful team. They had that little run there in the Big Ten tournament. But after that, I mean, you've seen first-round losses in the Big Ten tournament, consistently bad play in Big Ten conference play. And honestly, most of these teams just come into, even non-conference, they come into this mid-majors, come into it as, I can win this game, and especially those Power 5 schools are coming into this and they're thinking, okay, well, this is just another school to roll over. And, that's just not where you want to have yourself as a college basketball program. But with that, bringing in my 17, I've got Rutgers. They struggled last year with Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, and then you lose those two to the draft. I just don't see them improving after losing two huge players. Both of those guys going, I believe, top 5.
Oh yeah, both top 5.
Top 5 picks in the draft. I can't see this program getting better. I think they finished around 14th last year in Big Ten play, but again, say it once again, just no improvement.
Oh, yeah, also at my 17, I also have Rutgers. I think the departure of Harper and Bailey is really going to just affect them overall this season, because those two guys, 5-star recruits out of high school, they decided to come to Rutgers. Like, they had many offers from those higher-end schools.
You could have gone to Duke. You could have gone UNC. You could have gone anywhere. Kansas, Kentucky.
I mean, they believed...
Jersey guys, though.
Yeah, so,
true.
I mean... Obviously, being from Jersey, they obviously thought, they'll step into a bigger role at Rutgers, but it really didn't pan out last season, going 8-12 in the Big Ten. And I mean, sadly, I don't think this Rutgers team is really going to excel at all. I think it's going to be a decent drop off from last year, but still, I think they'll finish better than Penn State in overall Big Ten play.
My number 17, I went a little bit different direction. Got Northwestern right there. I mean, what do I really have to say? It's Northwestern. They haven't quite put the pieces together for a while now. Didn't make enough moves really in the portal that really blew my mind. So that's why I got them at my number 17 spot.
Yeah, and then that'll bring us into 16. My 16 spot, I have Northwestern. Like he said, you lose Keenan Fitzmaurice in the portal. You bring in Arton Page to replace him at center. When you're in the Big Ten Power Conference, you can't be just replacing guys. You can't just be filling voids. You need to be improving every position consistently year after year because, the rest of the conference is only going to get better. And, we've seen that over time. But, consistently just kind of a bottom of the pack, bottom feeder school, college basketball-wise. They had Boo Buie a couple years ago, but since his departure, we haven't seen them bring in any of these really star-studded guys in, but, yeah.
My 16, I have the Washington Huskies, actually. Departures...
I could disagree with you there.
I hate that pick.
I could really disagree with you there.
Alright, well, the departures they had, they lost Osborne and through graduation. Then they had Harris, Breideback, and Mason to the portal, which, I mean, big losses there. I think those guys all contributed very well to the Huskies' floor plan last year, and it just really didn't pan out. That's why I got them here at 16. I know you guys disagree, but I mean, this is what we're here for.
I mean, at my 16, you guys had them at 17. I got Rutgers. Underperformed while having two top 5 NBA draft picks, and of course Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. They couldn't perform with those two guys. I don't really see them getting any better going into the 25-26 season.
Exactly. Yeah, completely agree. Kind of knocked off most of those bottom feeder schools there, except for Washington. I gotta say, I don't like that pick there.
I think that's personally don't like that.
Very bad pick. I think they improved a lot in the portal. We'll get into obviously where we have them in the future. But that'll bring us to 15. I've got Nebraska. You're coming off of a 7-13 season last year in Big Ten play. They had a decent portal, bringing in Kendall Blue, a 10-point per game scorer from St. Thomas. But you lose a versatile guard that you can improve over time in Gavin Griffiths.
At my 15, I got the Minnesota Golden Gophers here. I think their key departures just through graduation, a lot of graduation, really only losing one to the portal in Femia Ducale. Don't even know how to say his last name, but yeah, I just don't think the Gophers will really excel this season. I mean, they're kind of that team that will scrape by in a couple of the bigger games, but still not a team that I see going far in overall Big Ten play.
Yeah, I agree.
At my 15, as well as Chuck, I have Nebraska. 7-13 in Big Ten play last year. I see them improving, actually. They lost a few key players to graduation. I mean, I see them taking a step back from their 24-14 overall record, but I think they get 1 or 2 games better in Big Ten play this season.
Yeah, like I said, personally, I just can't really see them improving. Like I said, I like the addition of Kendall Blue, but you can only do so much. You're coming in from a mid-major school, you're going to a lower team in the Big Ten, but yeah, I don't see Nebraska really taking that jump. I think they're always just kind of a bottom to middle feeder team. But that'll bring us to 14. We've heard it before. It's Minnesota. I feel honestly criminal having them at 14. It just doesn't feel right. I mean, Minnesota's consistently past 5-10 years always been that even 17-18 team almost every year. I mean, they are just not known for basketball. Honestly, I feel like their sports overall are really just not in their prime. Football's on the come up a little bit.
We got hockey, but that's really
hockey as well. But I mean,
it's hockey.
We're college basketball guys. It interferes with the college hockey season. So, but yeah, no, you bring in B.J. Omet from Cal and Kensley Willis from Western Michigan. Don't lose too much talent, so that's kind of why I have them at the 14 spot. But, again, you're just not beating out any of the teams above this.
At my 14, I got the Nebraska Cornhuskers here. Just a little interchange here for you guys. You guys had Nebraska below Minnesota, but I think what I have them here, departures being Bryce Williams through graduation, Juwan Gary through graduation. Most of their departures were graduation guys, but also bring in, the guy you said, Kendall Blue, and then also Jamarcus Lawrence from Rhode Island, and then Price Sanford from Iowa. I think that's, like you said, Nebraska, they're on the come-up for football with Dylan Raiola, but really just not a great team overall.
My 14 spot, me and Chuck are kind of right at the same pace right here. I got Minnesota. Lost a few players like Nebraska did, and Minnesota really always sits the middle of the pack every year. Chuck pretty much covered it all. I just don't see Minnesota as that, one of those top 10 teams. I always see them just floating around, they're just there.
Yeah, always floating that kind of 11 at the highest to even lowest of 17, 18. We just don't see great play out of Minnesota almost ever. It's even reflected in their attendance. You go to a Minnesota game, and there's not a lot of people there. People just don't really get excited for that Minnesota Golden Gopher basketball. Yeah, with that, we'll bring it into 13. I've got USC a little lower than I feel like most people would have expected, but you lose Des Claude to a conference opponent. Overall, just not a great roster at USC. I really don't like how they utilize the portal. And I have them at 13 because I feel like they always have that little buffer between them and like a bottom feeder. Not contributing to the higher class of the conference, but they're not just bottom of the barrel awful program.
My 13, I got Northwestern here. I think just them bringing in guys like Jaden Reed from USF and then Max Green from Holy Cross. I just think those guys will have an impact in that Wildcat offense and defense, but I still don't think they're going to, like you said, they're bottom feeders. They're kind of swarming toward that middle to lower end of the Big Ten, but still better than the teams I had below them, but still Northwestern being okay this season.
At my 13, I have Indiana. Of course, the pretty much complete squad wipe there.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
and then the massive coaching changes. Yeah, I mean, I can't really see them as a top team this year. Just kind of sitting there at the 13 to 10 range.
Yeah, a little bit of influx there at the 13 spot. All kind of have different spots. He's bringing guys that we had way up at 18 and 17. He's bringing them down over to 13. He's got a guy that I have a little bit farther down over at his 13 spot. And I know he has USC a little bit farther down than I have them. But that'll bring us into number 12. I have Ohio State. Are they they're pretty much 11 and 12 every year? Or an old Big Ten play would be like an 8 or a 9. But they bring in. I love that what they're doing at the young guard spot with Braylon Nash and Kobe Bauman. I feel like the guard is going to be that position that is really impactful, but I'm not seeing enough at the center, the power forward, that's going to propel them over that hump in Big Ten play.
My 12, I got the Indiana Hoosiers here. I think we're pretty close with where we ranked them. I just think they lost, like you said, a lot of guys. Just completely, just all of them leaving the program through either graduation or the portal. Don't know what's going on over there because of it, but just finishing in that middle of the range for me as well. Additions being guys from the guy from West Virginia, Tucker DeVries, and then Reed Bailey from Davidson. But those are really the bigger guys who were brought into Indiana, but like they said, once you lose a lot of players, you got to gain them back.
Number 12 for me, I have Iowa. They're building solid teams year in and year out, but never really impresses me as one of those stronger tournament teams. Decent in the Big Ten tournament, but you don't really see them in March Madness much. They brought in a lot of Drake's players from last season, but on the downside, they lost a lot of their roster last season.
Yeah, at my 11th spot, I have Iowa, as he mentioned. They bring in Ben McCallum from Drake. But this Iowa team is just stuck in that mid every year. We've seen them be pretty middle of the pack, mediocre year after year since they lost Luka Garza a couple of years ago. And even with Luka Garza, they were a first round exit in March Madness, as I want to say a 4 seed. I think it was. I can't remember off the top who they lost to, but I remember that busted my bracket first game of the year that year. So, never really been an Iowa believer. Never will be an Iowa believer. Those are my thoughts on Iowa this year.
In my 11, I also have Iowa, just because I think them bringing in guys from Drake, who Drake did. I had Drake pretty high going last year in the March Madness. I thought they were gonna shock some people, but bringing in biggest name across the board is probably Bennett Sturtsy from Drake, bring in the head coach, but really that's it.
At my number 11 spot, I have Ohio State. They've always been a pretty solid basketball program. Never see them in huge contention personally. I love what the team has going for the guard positions, like you guys said. I love Bruce Thornton and Devin Royal. But, yeah, like Chuck said, losing everyone that you have at the center position and, your front court, it's not going to work out, of course. Losing Aaron Bradshaw, former 5-star, you can't just have those 2 guard spots that carry your team. You got to have it, the ball be spread around the front court.
Exactly. Veterans can only bring so much of a presence within a team, and then mentor those young guys. But especially in today's era, does mentorship really mean anything in college basketball? I mean, especially with the transfer portal. I mean, you could get mentored by one guy and then boom, you're at another Big Ten school even.
Yeah, or you can go to a school, be in the NBA the next year.
Exactly. I believe we're at number 10 now.
Yep.
10? Yeah, my number 10, I have Maryland. As an Illinois fan, Maryland does tend to have our number every year. We tend to lose to them quite a bit. But I love that they brought in Buzz Williams from Texas A&M. He's been quietly building something over there. They're consistently, they're making the tournament quite a few years in a row. He's, like I said, quietly been building a good little program over there, and Maryland kind of fits that. They're always a little quiet team under the weather. Obviously, this past year with Derek Queen, they've been a lot more popular than they usually are, but usually we see them right around that 7-8 seed spot, and I think that Buzz Williams can really take them over that hump and bring them back consistently to that 4 seed spot. I just think year one he's not going to be able to do that, so that's why I have them at number 10.
Yeah, my number 10, I also have Maryland. I just think the departure of Derek Queen can show, that was going to show early in the season. He was probably the number one option over there in Maryland.
Easily. 100%.
And then, obviously, Buzz Williams coming in. I think his role he'll kind of fit that Derek Queen role, the guy that will just mainly take over the floor for them. But obviously, they finished 14-6 in Big Ten play last year, had an overall decent record, but honestly, they'll float around this area the whole time.
I also have Maryland at number 10. Coming off a strong showing last year, of course, Derek Queen and that impressive Big Ten record, that brought a lot of popularity towards their basketball program. And, of course, hiring Buzz Williams and getting multiple 4-star recruits or 4-star transfers and stuff is big, considering Williams consistently builds good good teams.
Yeah, can all kind of agree there, just like Penn State, 10 and 18. I think those are two main agree points, which, I have this team a lot lower than these guys had, but at number 9, I've got Indiana. I think that bringing in that new coach was exactly what Indiana needed. I think Indiana needed to clear that house. I think that they were becoming a rotten program, they're not building anything, they're consistently missing the tournament, you're not bringing in that Indiana basketball name. You have that name built, and you're not living up to that, hype. I love what they did in the portal, too. They had an amazing portal season. Josiah Miles, Josh Harris from North Florida, they already have that connection. So that's going to run deep in Indiana, this season. Bringing guys like Connor Enright from DePaul, Tucker DeVries from West Virginia. I love the way that this roster's looking. Only reason why I have them at 9 and not higher is, again, because, you're fitting a whole new system. You can have a good first year, but it's going to be rough to get all these guys clicking right off the gate. I think towards the end of the season, we're talking January till that Big Ten tournament, I think that's really when they're going to take off and just skyrocket up those rankings.
A little bit of shocker here for me. I have USC at number 9 here. You had them lower, obviously. You thought didn't have much belief in them, but I think this team will excel this season. Obviously, coming off kind of a crappy Big Ten play last year, 7-13, but bringing guys like Rodney Rice from Maryland, like we were talking about, Chad Baker-Mazar from Auburn, a team that went to the Final Four last year. His presence coming into USC will probably make, because he's going to be seen as one of the top options over there. So a little bit of shocker for most of us, but I have USC a little higher.
At my number 9 spot, I have Oregon. They have been, in my opinion, the most sneaky, under-the-radar Big Ten team since they've joined the conference. 25-10 record last season, 12-8 in the Big Ten. For, being, their first few years in the conference, I'm really liking this team, and I still see them being great headed into the 25-26 season after a very good last month or so of the season. I don't see why they can't keep playing that type of basketball.
Yeah, at my number 8, I've got Michigan State. This might come as a surprise, falling from that top team in regular season play, last year finishing first. However, it's a new team this year. You don't have all those guys that are from last year. it's an even stronger Big Ten as well. You know, we're seeing all these teams that were middle of the pack moving their way up, and I just didn't see them rebuilding as much. I also don't think Cohen Carr or Jeremy Fierce are going to pan out as all Big Ten team guys. I just personally don't really believe in them like that. And I think that it's going to be a struggle for Michigan State this year.
Not my number 8. I got Oregon here. I think them adding TK Simpkins from Ellen, and then also bringing in Miles Goodman from Penn State, also Pryor from Texas, will boost their chances of being more competitive this season than they were, finishing 12-8 last year in the Big Ten. But I think this team can excel this year. That's why I have them at my number 8 spot.
At my number 8 spot, I have USC. I mean, this might be a hot take, but I can see them being a tournament team this year. Of course, adding Chad Baker-Mazara, that gives them a huge mentor to other players, and just all that experience from, of course, a 25-year-old. I mean, bringing in Elijah Arenas, who's, of course, his first game of the season, most likely not going to be playing for a while. And also bringing in Robert Morris transfer, Marion Dickerson, to help their guard position a lot. So, of course, scoring 13 points a game on 53% shooting from the field brings them great size and defense as well. So I think USC is going to be a team to watch out for in the Big Ten.
Yeah, so that brings us to our number 7. We're getting down here in this list. I have Oregon, as he had them at number 8. I think Jackson Chelstad and Nathan Biddle are the truth at Oregon. I think that they have been consistently a sneaky good program. They're making the tournament year after year, and I don't see why they won't be able to do that this year. Like I said, every year they're kind of that sneaky little pick. They work their way up, and just like that, they're in the Sweet 16. So, yeah.
My number 7, I got Ohio State up here.
A little high there.
Yeah.
A little high, but I think them bringing in guys like Gabe Cupp from Indiana, Brandon Newell from Wright State, and Christopher Tilley from Santa Clara. Also Amar Bynum from him just coming in as a higher-ranked high school recruit. I think this team can excel. I mean, obviously not that great in Big Ten last year, but like I said about Oregon, I think they'll take a decent jump as these teams that were in the middle of the pack last year decide to move up because through the transfer portal, also getting nice high school recruits. I think this team can easily excel to where I have them at.
Okay, at my number 7, you totally aren't going to agree with this, but Washington. Jacob Bogdanovic is a certified dog. Like, I never really heard about him until, like, the tournament last year, and, of course, played in Milwaukee for Lipscomb. He's a stud and a great addition for them. Another great asset they picked up in the portal is Desmond Claude. Crafty scorer, an even better passer. I mean, shoots 50% from the field. What else can you ask for? I think Washington is going to be a team to watch out for.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. At number 6, I have Wisconsin. Expect big seasons this year from John Blackwell and Nolan Winter. It's common ground in the state of Wisconsin to have underrated teams. I mean, if we tap into some other sports, Brewers coming into the season super underrated. They're winning the NL at this point. Good chance. Great play over there. Packers tend to be, not so much this season, but, tend to be a little bit underrated coming into the season, and they're always a very strong contender. And same thing with Wisconsin basketball. They're always, projected around that, they're going to be around the 10 spot this year. I don't know if they're a tournament team. They always end up being in the tournament. They're always a sneaky team. I don't see why they won't do that this year.
My number 6, I got your team here, Illinois. Grabbing these guys like Stojakovic from Cal and Visic from Arkansas. I think these guys will easily help this Illinois team get to the next level. I think they'll finish around the same as they did last year. They'll do decent in the conference play like they always do. And just the only thing is just losing Will Riley, Morris Johnson to the portal, and then also Kasper Jakovic or whatever. Jaku Chones, sorry. But yeah, losing those guys, but also bring in pretty good guys in return.
My number 6, I have Wisconsin. I personally think Greg Gard is the total problem there. I
agree.
They got to get rid of him, and that'll bring their basketball program back to life. I mean, they're always a solid team when it comes to Big Ten play, but I feel like once it comes to the tournament, they can't really put the pieces together.
You're seeing that first round loss, second round exit, just not making it past those first 2 rounds.
I mean, back-to-back Big Ten championship appearances, but you can't come out with the win back-to-back years.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, they're just overrated when it comes to the tournament. And, of course, guys like John Blackwell coming back, that's going to help them a lot. But I really just think Greg Gard is holding this program back in just their horribly slow pace of play.
Yeah, I completely agree with Greg Gard there. I think that he is that issue at Wisconsin, and he is holding them back so much, and especially with that slow, miserable to watch Wisconsin offense. Almost as bad as watching Virginia basketball there. But at my number 5, a little bit higher than Alex or Chubby's in this one, and I've got Washington. I cannot say enough about how much I'm loving this program. You bring in Des Claude and Wesley Yates from USC. That's big conference. You're stealing guys from another conference team. Whereas he said from Lipscomb, you got Ognacevic, and then you bring in Lathan Somerville. You also have a genius at the head coach spot in Danny Sprinkle. Definitely a team to watch in this 25-26 season.
Couldn't agree with you more there, Chuck.
Number 5, I got the Michigan State Spartans here. Obviously, they did great last year in Big Ten play. They were showing teams that they can still run with them. Obviously, Tom Izzo at the helm for them obviously helps them out, but still think that Fears and Carr, I mean, they've been pretty nice pieces for that Spartan team, but I still think that they're going to collapse at one point this season, but they're going to have an overall decent team.
My number 5 spot, I also have Michigan State. Of course, Tom Izzo, one of the best coaches of all time.
Very true.
Michigan State, when you think about Michigan State, you used to think of, okay, that's the Big Ten powerhouse. I don't see that anymore from them.
I agree. I agree.
To be honest, I mean, they had the best record in Big Ten play last year, but, I mean, I think they're a great team overall. I think guys like Jeremy Fears and Cohen Carr will elevate this team, and they could be a pretty decent team to watch out for. I just don't think they can make that jump to be better than teams like Illinois and Purdue.
Yeah, I agree. At my number 4 spot, my personal favorite, I've got Illinois. A little bit of bias here, but I feel like number 4 isn't too bad of a spot to put them this year. But I feel like it's a very, very hit or miss season with this Balkan block. You got Stojakovic from Cal, proven scorer that can work in almost any system. We've seen that as he bounces around through the portal. You return Kylan Boswell. Only downside that I'm not liking is that, you do lose Morez Johnson to Michigan, a huge rival in the Big Ten. I don't know as a program how you can let up a hometown kid like that. I mean, he's coming out of Chicago, commits to Illinois. Didn't play the biggest season behind Ivisic last season, but, I just don't see how you can lose him to a school like Michigan. A huge, huge rival. I cannot express that enough, how big of a loss that is in the portal.
My number 4, I got my favorite team here, Wisconsin. I think obviously biggest departure here has got to be Tanji. I mean, he really led that team last year as a shocker. Everyone's saying, Tanji isn't going to really do anything for this, since he has bounced around the portal as well. But he seemed to fit into that Greg Gard offense a lot last year, being one of their best scorers, and bringing in guys like Rode and Rapp and Nick Boyd from San Diego State.
Yeah.
I think he'll play that John Tanji role this year as that impact transfer, and I think this team will finish where I have them, number 4 in the conference.
My number 4 spot, I have Chuck's favorite team, Illinois. I really, really like what Brad Underwood did this offseason with recruiting, and of course bringing in Andres Stojakovic is huge for the Illini. He's been, like Chuck said, a consistent scorer since freshman year. I mean, I also expect, of course, the Ivisic brothers to be good for this team. Thomas Love was elite last year. Hopefully Big Z, hasn't really shown up to what he was supposed to be, of course, at Kentucky and Arkansas, but I think he can elevate this team a pretty good amount. And then Boswell returning, that's another veteran guy. And this could be great for the Illini squad, hoping to bounce back after getting whooped by Kentucky last season in the tournament.
We don't talk about that game. But bring us into number 3. I've got UCLA. With UCLA this season, I think it is a huge make or break year with this program. I think it's very similar as Michigan State was heading into last season. With Michigan State, you needed that good season to keep yourself as considered a top tier program. You don't want to end up as where like Syracuse is in the ACC. You're just falling down the ranks every year. Your name is diminishing, and you're really just not seeing those results. But I really believe in my guy Donovan Dent. I've been following him since his days at Corona Centennial out in California. Which, speaking of, I would like to talk about how great of a high school team and how underappreciated Corona Centennial was.
I agree there.
You got Jared McCain, now plays for the 76ers, went to Duke. You got Colin Boswell, he committed to Arizona out of high school. Now he's over at Illinois. You had Devin Williams, who was at UCLA for a couple years, not quite panning out. He's transferring to FAU this season. Next up, you got, obviously, Donovan Dent. Like I said, love this guy. Can't say enough about him. I think he easily could go for that National Player of the Year. And then even got your bench guys like Aaron McBride, over at Loyola Marymount. But I just wanted to point that out because I feel like Corona Centennial is such an underappreciated squad in this high school basketball, college basketball, super team realm. Little recency bias, but I think it was that 2021 roster. I think that they really were a great program overall.
And I think Corona Centennial, also for baseball, 3 first-round picks this year out of high school, as well as my guy Bryce Turang for the Brewers. They've produced a lot of talent coming out of that high school.
My number 3, I also have UCLA. I think the addition of Donovan Dent is really going to help them bring him in from New Mexico. The Patino offense over there, just him helping out with all that, and then also bring in Booker from the Big Ten from Michigan State. I think that will help boost this UCLA offense and also just help them finish where they are ranked for me.
I have UCLA at 3 as well. Donovan Dent, he's the truth there. I really love this UCLA program, but when you think of UCLA, they haven't been producing as what you'd think they would.
Haven't been dominant recently.
Yeah. I mean, this team could be scary with Dent, though. I mean, in my opinion, he's the best guard around the basket, and he can also knock down threes at a 40% clip. I mean, dishing out 6 assists per game, just outside of the top 10 in college basketball. I think UCLA could be a really good team.
Yeah, completely agree. Everybody has UCLA all around at 3. I think most of our top 3s are going to be pretty similar, pretty interchangeable. But at number 2, I have Michigan. Little decent first year for Dusty May last year, but heading into year 2, great year in the portal. Two key additions in Yaxel Lendenberg from UAB, Elliot Cadeau from North Carolina, and then obviously my guy Morris Johnson Jr. from Illinois. But I really see this Michigan team start to blossom this year and bring themselves back to that star-studded Big Ten program that they always were.
Oh, yeah, I also have Michigan here at my number 2. Sounds like they're rebuilding from last year, getting back to where they were, firing on all cylinders. I think adding Cadeau to that team will really help. I mean, big guy at UNC, and also bringing in Yaxel Lendenberg. I mean, guy's a beast.
I mean, I also have Michigan. We're going a little bit around the horn here. Yeah. I don't think losing Danny Wolf and the other big is going to really hurt them, of course, because this is probably one of my favorite Michigan squads that, probably ever. What Dusty May has been able to do in the portal is crazy. I mean, snagging the number 1 transfer recruit, Yaxel Lendenberg, will help their all-around game. I mean, he's a projected first-round pick last year. And the addition of Elliot Cadeau from UNC. He had a down season last year, but UNC had a down year. And I can see the playmaking guard making a huge impact for Michigan. And honestly, I could see Michigan ending up at the top of this list by the end of the season.
Yeah. At my number 1, I've got Purdue. I think the whole country pretty much has Purdue. They're the de facto number 1 all around. You've got the return of 2 All-Americans, guard Braden Smith, forward Trey Kaufman-Renn. Smith, the reigning Big Ten Player of the Year, he's a premier point guard, known for elite passing, elite court vision. Then Kaufman-Renn, dominant force in the paint, having Big Ten honors last season. This duo is going to be a great combo of top tier talent. And I honestly, if you don't preseason have Purdue as number one, you're wrong. It's Purdue. That's the correct answer.
Best starting lineup in the country, in my opinion.
Looks like we can all agree here. I also have Purdue at my number one. I think they're just all around. They're the best team in this Big Ten. So I think they'll stay like that for a very long time. Just how Smith and Kaufman-Reen can just run the floor for this team every year. We've seen it. I mean, Purdue has been one of those dominant teams in the Big Ten. They've stayed like that for a while. So I'm glad we're all here at Purdue for one.
Yeah, as well as these guys, Purdue, they've been the Big Ten powerhouse for a few years now. The return of Big Ten Player of the Year, Braden Smith, first-team All-Big Ten forward Trey Kaufman-Renn, and All-Big Ten guard Fletcher Loyer is huge for this Purdue roster, already creating their Big Three, not to mention the addition of Oscar Clough, who averaged 17 points, 12 rebounds last season. Great addition to their center spot. And also the addition of sophomore guard C.J. Cox should, in my opinion, give them the best starting lineup in college basketball. But I think the most hit-or-miss player on their roster in make or break is going to be Daniel Jacobson. 7'4" sophomore center, broke his leg, of course, in the second game of the season. Yep. With him back to full strength, I feel like he's an Edey that can shoot threes.
Yeah, he could easily fill that Edey role 100%.
I think he's going to be very good for this roster. Yeah. And if he pans out, I can see this team staying number one in the country the whole season and making an incredible run in the tournament.
Yeah, so that's going to wrap up our first episode here, as well as our Big Ten rankings. Just a little preview for the next couple episodes. Out of season, we film every other week, so next week there will not be an episode. You got to let that time for the season to gather some news. It's definitely a slow off season. But yeah, 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks we should have another episode out. And once the season starts, we got it every week. Recapping games. It's gonna be huge. Can't wait to get that started. But yeah, next week I think we'll have the SEC and ACC previews. We got a double preview episode for y'all. Hope y'all liked the first episode. Can't wait till y'all tune in for the second one, and we'll see you in the next one.
And of course, go out and follow the Instagram and the TikTok.
TikTok as well. Follow us on all platforms as well. Apple, Spotify. Don't know if we'll be on Amazon quite yet, but definitely working on it.
We'll work there.